The following is a paid announcement by the People's National Party.
Building your Kingston, building Clarendon, building your Central, Portland to Westmoreland, building your St. Bess, building St. Catherine, yes, St. Mary now get left, and over to the west, building up St. James, St. Thomas of the Wave, building Manchester name, Trelawney we are clear. Building your Jamaica, PNP does a build it up. Building your Jamaica, PNP does a build it up, build it up, build it up. Hospital and school, farmer plant more food, build it up, build it up. More factory like a road that improve, build it up, build it up. Put the X beside the head, that's what you're gonna do. Build it up, build it up. We are build Jamaica.
Anyone acquainted with politics in Jamaica would tell our children that I love election campaigns like bread loves butter. This one is the first to be held in the course of a pandemic, and persons of my age are confined to the pavilion, and so I have to send my message to you through this medium, live and direct. The People's National Party was created to place people at the center of our policies. We put people first. The emphasis has been on building a nation where our voice can be heard clearly in the world outside. The health and welfare of every nation require a rejection of temptation to indulge in political opportunism or greed. We may be small in size, but have become a powerful voice in the building of a world where there is peace and our relationships are spent in the fight against hunger, disease, poverty, terrorism, ignorance, and squatting. Dr. Peter Phillips has been a member of my team which builds schools, increased the number of universities from 1 to 6, built highways, modernized our airports and seaports, fashioned a well-organized transport system, modernized our health network, introduced new programs such as PATH, JSIF, the National Health Fund, and Chase. But Peter's greatest contribution is by far his work under the astute leadership of my beloved successor, Portia Simpson Miller, in pulling Jamaica back from the precipice of economic disaster and laying the sound foundations for growth and development. As we currently face the greatest pandemic the world has ever seen, and the challenges which it will bring, every Jamaican deserves a Prime Minister who will relentlessly fight for his citizens, demonstrate results, and love for people and country. We need real substance rather than differences in shoe style or appearance. By any test, Dr. Peter Phillips is undoubtedly a highly qualified leader to build a Jamaica that works for everyone. His commitment to accountability in government and his reputation as a champion for justice for all Jamaicans have been proven many times over. The People's National Party works best together as a team. I am delighted at the quality and versatility of Team PNP as our candidates seek to create new opportunities for every section of our society. Let us join together in building a nation where justice prevails in the distribution of resources, in social justice, and a nation where we emphasize the virtues of a participatory democracy in Jamaica, land we love.
What is it that makes access to proper amenities and social services for all, and not just a few, that makes some of us so uncomfortable? Why should wealth be reserved for a few and not all? Jamaica is a young democracy, and we can't move the country forward by leaving the masses behind. Let me remind you that I am a product of those 18 years under the People's National Party. I was born here, I went to high school here and university, and I've worked here. In the 18 years under the PNP, we have established and implemented the Poverty Alleviation Through Health and Education Program PATH, JSIF, the National Council of Education, the National Works Agency, NEPA, the National Solid Waste Management Authority, the Drugs for the Elderly Program, JADEP, the National Health Fund, NHF, the National Contracts Commission, the Fair Trading Commission, the OUR, the Early Childhood Commission, the Financial Services Commission, the Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation, JUTC, both major highways, Highway 2000 and the North-South Highway, the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and TPDCO, upgrades to both the Norman Manley and the Donald Sangster International Airports, and we reduced poverty to the lowest in the history of our country at 9%, and established the regional health authorities, which improved the management of our healthcare system. We also established transformative legislation, which many of our women now take for granted, such as the Marriage Act, the Child Care and Protection Act, the Property Rights of Spouses Act, and the Domestic Violence Act. I've been an MP for 13 years, 9 of which the JLP had been in government. When the PNP took over, we inherited a decimated economy that was collapsed. It was Peter Phillips as a Minister of Finance who rescued this economy, putting it onto a stable and sturdy footing. The past 4 years, not much has been done outside of the work that was set in motion by the People's National Party. You have an opportunity to put us back on a path to building your Jamaica. On September 3, vote PNP. Put your X beside the head.
The People's National Party has presented a manifesto that is dedicated to the people. It understands and recognizes the plight of the people and seeks to correct them with proper policy initiatives and proper policy implementation. What we have identified are special groups such as the teachers, the nurses, the police force that have been committed to this nation and underrepresented for many, many years. We have identified the youth, university hopeful, the inner city communities, the rural communities, and have put policies and plans in place to ensure that they can survive this COVID crisis. We have also looked for the next 5 years to ensure that we are going to be implementing proper procedures for agriculture, for housing, and for the parents of the society through education and childcare. That is the pledge of the People's National Party to be the people's government in the next 5 years.
1 degree per household. The PNP is committed to 1 degree per household. We have identified an average school fee of 350,000. And we're saying 10,000 persons per year will receive 350,000 in scholarship to ensure that we can
Explain that a little bit more, because I know the university education is no longer an exception to many Jamaican households. Because Jamaican pick the bride.
Yes.
So tell our Jamaican people that the PNP guarantees every single household, that one of their children,
one will be given a scholarship.
Free.
Well, 350,000 is our maximum at this particular point in time. And so therefore, on average, that is where we're going.
Sure.
But what we want to ensure is that we have less people, 8 subjects, 10 subjects, working in a wholesale because they can't afford the opportunity of going to a university. If you're going to use your resources efficiently, then the human resource must also be used efficiently. We must use our capital resources efficiently. We must use our natural resources efficiently. But most importantly, we must not have a doctor capacity being in a wholesale. And so therefore, the persons who are in Arnett Gardens, the persons who are down in rural St. Anne, the persons in St. Thomas, who have seen many move towards negative activity because we spend 20 billion on fighting the bad guy.
And because they're frustrated because their parents probably don't have it.
Yeah. So that frustration will be relieved with 1 degree per household.
Access to quality education is one of the guiding principles of the PNP. Our pledge is to ensure that all students and teachers have access to adequate technology infrastructure. The rapid infusion of technology into the teaching and learning process will ensure that no child gets left behind. Let's build an education system for all Jamaicans.
Essentially, what we're trying to do is to find ways of helping businesses survive and employment to continue to be to grow rather than diminish during this time. So we have looked at, Damien touched on the idea of homeowners who may fall into default on their home mortgages. And these are, we're talking about their primary residence now, where we would provide a mechanism through a guarantee of interest payments that would mean that the banks would not have to enforce the collateral.
Back up again and explain that again, because I want our viewers to hear that.
Where persons are unable to make payments on their home mortgages, after a 90-day period, the regulations that apply would require the bank to start to try and realize on that loan by selling the property. And we're saying in the time of COVID, that needs to be changed so that that becomes 2 years. And we will protect the financial institutions for the interest portion of that. The principal is already covered by the value of the unit, so the interest portion of that we would cover through a guarantee. So that would give persons some time to recover as the economy hopefully rebounds over the next 2 years rather than having their homes sold from under them. That's one idea.
That's one idea. That's
but
one
for
issue.
businesses, we're going to the GCT arrears and the penalties and interest that are charged on GCT arrears, we'll be providing a break on that so that businesses will not incur those additional hits to their cash flow and their liabilities while they're trying to make it through the present the crisis. We have, as I've said, the whole construction of affordable housing and partnering with private developers and the NHT and pension funds to finance a very substantial build out over the next 5 years annually. I mean, we have a stretch target of 130,000 units. I mean, that's a really ambitious target, but we're going to try and get as close to that as we can over the next 5 years in terms of affordable housing with the rent-to-own structure, which makes it financeable for individuals with very modest incomes. And
when you say modest incomes, break that down. That is a housekeeper attendant at a hotel.
Yes.
That is a construction worker who is probably a little mason. That is a plumber who have to, get a little 2-day work or 3-day work or something on a
and the
structure.
person on a hustle. What the rent to buy do, Lisa, is to establish before ownership a trend of payment. And so therefore it reduces the concept that you have to have upfront proof that I have all this money available. Because over three years you have established a trend of payment. Over 2 years you established a trend of payment in the rent portion that becomes the mortgage.
Right.
But as Marcus said, we have never heard in our lifetime a reservation of household units for security.
And young
guards.
people, students can also.
35,000. A person just leaving school is often caught in the quicksand of paying rent of 70,000, 50,000, and by extension never owns a home. And so if he can immediately move that rent into a mortgage, that will generate great demand, but also great assistance.
Gentlemen, so under the post-COVID recovery, we have the business persons in terms of some leniency on the GCT payments. We have our residential homeowners who will get a break on their mortgage. We'll have the rent to buy and giving an ease on persons. The unemployed.
The teachers.
The
home modification
grant for
teachers.
teachers. Talk to me about the universal access to healthcare now.
Well, for some time, there has been talk and thought going on about trying to create a universal health insurance plan for the country. I mean, we see where the cost of healthcare is completely debilitating for persons who can't afford when they get hit by some unforeseen health challenge.
Kidney dialysis.
So the truth is, I mean, in Jamaica today, if you're poor, you better be healthy, because if you get sick, you're in real problems. So we really need to address that. And the idea of free healthcare really is a sham, because when you get sick and you need the drugs, you can't typically get them other than going to buy them from some private.
The diagnosis.
Well, I know that well, because and you probably know it well as well, because for the 3 terms that I've been a member of Parliament, the majority of persons come to me asking for help for CT scans, kidney dialysis, chemotherapy, and it can generally wipe you out. Now, Mark and Damien, there are going to be the skeptics out there. There are going to be the people that say, well, all politicians do and the PNP do is promise, and them can't back it up and fund it. I know we can fund it because we've identified the funds, but I want you to speak to what our priorities are and how we will organize our estimates of expenditure to make sure we put the people first.
Yeah. Well, as finance minister, my role is to ensure that we can finance it without
Undue stress.
jeopardizing the fiscal accounts of the country and the hard work and sacrifice that has been made over the last 7 years. So we realize that in terms of the rollout of this, we'll have to be mindful of the current fiscal situation that we're in, which is very dire. So I don't want to be pretending that that doesn't exist, because it does. And that is why we'll be prioritizing the things that will have the biggest impact in terms of trying to ease the pressure of COVID on persons and the pressure on the economy of COVID. When we get restored to more normal times, we will be able to continue to roll out some of the other things that we have in mind. We have basically said, look, if you look at the composition of the expenditure budget of the country, you have an amount that is there for debt service, which is interest and principal. We have an amount that is there for salaries. And the rest is primarily projects and programs. Yeah, what we could say. And what we have said is when we cost out our program, we're looking at between 25 and 30% of the discretionary budget is what it amounts to. And that is really a question of how a government prioritizes what it wants to do. We have identified what we think should be the priorities at this time: to transform the lives of our people, to give them dignity at home, to strengthen the economy and make it more resilient. What COVID has showed up is a lack of resilience in the Jamaican economy. We have been projected by UNCTAD as being probably the worst hit by COVID in the world. We need to address some of those things.
Building near Jamaica means providing greater access to housing. The PNP's pledge to you is to establish a rent-to-own program with a plan allowing for a portion of your rent to go towards your down payment and eventual ownership of your home. No longer will you be stuck in the quicksand, which prevents you from owning your own home. We are building a Jamaica for all Jamaicans.
Ambition is the engine that drives Jamaican society. All the way, as one to pick me, we are all deserving of the best that this country has to offer. Whether you live in the inner city or a community in deep rural Jamaica, our drive as the People's National Party is that you succeed. You deserve to raise your family in a good, affordable home. You deserve support as a small business entrepreneur, whether you're a musician or a farmer. Our passion for building your Jamaica has led us to create a plan that has you at the heart of it. This is the PNP's Wealthy Plan.
Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Peter Phillips, President of the People's National Party. Dr. Phillips.
Greetings to everyone. The Wealthy Plan focuses on a few areas, and our ambition is to ensure that it has a big impact. We will elevate our quality of living through internet, energy, and water, and ensure that these are massively expanded. We'll invest in our young people through funding businesses and entrepreneurship. We will fully digitize our educational system and deliver comprehensive health insurance to Jamaicans. We will massively expand housing solutions and farmland ownership and build resilience into our economy through diversification. People have asked me, what is wealthy Jamaica? What does it look like? Well, I say that wealth means advancing the quality of life of our people. When we are wealthy, all Jamaicans will be wealthy and will enjoy a high quality of living. Growing the economy and elevating the standard of living and for all Jamaicans is at the core of who we are as a party. It is our promise to you that we will deliver a country that rises to the level of your own commitment to yourselves and to Jamaica.
Small business represents the backbone of our economy, and many have been devastated by the pandemic. Our pledge is to increase funding for small businesses through grants and low-interest loans. New MSMEs will be offered an income tax break for their first 5 years of operation. Let's build a strong business sector for all Jamaicans.
We all know that many teachers during this COVID period had to dip into their pockets and provide credit to some parents for internet access and data. And they had to be on the road doing a number of things from their personal resources. You want to talk to the public a little bit about the $100,000 grants as a part of the COVID relief for teachers?
Absolutely. The truth of the matter is we very suddenly tried to adapt to remote teaching. And many teachers had not been specifically trained, nor did they have the technology infrastructure. Many of them were attempting to use a smartphone as their platform. Truth of the matter is, with the 100,000 grant that we have put in this program, a teacher will be able to set up a virtual classroom at home, a small studio, proper lighting, support technology, similar to what we're using here for this teleconference, to be able to give a quality experience to the students who she's teaching remotely, and to have a proper interactive environment. That is why we have identified 100,000 to do whatever modifications at home, to put a green screen as the one I'm sitting in front of at my home in Mandeville now, but yet viewers looking on may think I'm in a studio. We want a similar experience for our children who have to resort to remote learning.
Universal access to technology, to the internet. That requires both investment in broadband as well as satellite technology as well. And having spoken with different providers, different companies as to what is required, it is doable, it will cost, but it's imperative that every Jamaican, whether you're up in the hills in Kellits or you're in central Kingston, have access to be able to pay for the service as possible. We know as well as the PNP that not every Jamaican can afford access in this way, to pay for it. And so there are 600 communities across Jamaica, all across Jamaica, who've identified that in establishing free Wi-Fi there. As it stands, Peter Bunting, as he spoke about the education, we know that majority of our families in Jamaica, 48% of them are single mother households, right? And they are poorer. They can't always afford to pay for internet access for the children's online learning. And so we're very focused on having the free Wi-Fi up and running, not just a 5-year, 10-year plan, but up and running within that first year, so that the children can have access, the mothers have a bit of stress being relieved from them, and the children can perform well.
A lot of what Jamaica is achieving now is because of the historic performances of Mark Golding when he was a Minister of Justice in the last administration. Mark, to achieve the plan of a wealthy Jamaica, we must have overcome some barriers. Crime, COVID-19, and corruption. And crime is a relentless one. Speak to us a little bit about what we're going to do to make sure that we're not having a socially controlled state, but how we're going to socially invest in making sure we reduce crime.
Yeah. Well, crime is a symptom of problems in the home and in communities. And we believe that the way to manage crime in Jamaica, which is a long-standing and perhaps the most serious problem that the country faces, is not through focusing on repressive measures of social control, states of emergency that allow persons to be arrested without charge and detained indefinitely, and so on, or ZOSOs, which have been useful in dealing with hotspots, but which are really not a long-term solution. Rather, social investment is where we need to focus. And we have, in the last PNP administration, we treated crime and violence as a public health issue and took a public health approach to solving the problem. And we got significantly positive results. The average number of murders per year when we were in office was significantly less than applies either before or since that term, our term of office.
My fellow Jamaicans, on September 3rd, the country faces general elections. This time, things are different. We are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is worsening. The economy is in deep recession, while crime and corruption are on the rise. With the right leadership, we can turn things around. We did it before, and we will do it again. In 2012, the People's National Party took over a country in economic turmoil. Many financial experts said Jamaica was a lost cause. With the support and sacrifice of the people, the People's National Party administration turned the economy around and set Jamaica on a path of economic growth. In 2016, the Jamaica Labour Party won a narrow victory on a promise of prosperity. Instead of prosperity, you got high levels of murder and violence, high light bills, higher food prices, high gas prices, lower wages, hunger, malnutrition, poor health care, poor internet service, and worst of all, the theft of your resources by government officials and their friends. Today, many of you have no jobs and can barely make ends meet. You watch your standard of living fall from month to month as only a connected few reap the fruits of this country. My heart hurts for the single mothers who have nowhere to turn to, for the retirees who can't buy basic items including medication, and for the communities crushed by the actions of this government. This administration has failed on all its major challenges: crime control, economic growth, and educational improvement. Jamaica needs a chance. You need a break. You need hope. You need a government with a proven track record to take Jamaica out of economic ruin and set it on a path of recovery and growth. The People's National Party is ready to work for you and with you. Every action we take will be aimed at improving the quality of your life and restoring the economy. Our plan is simple. Ensure that all Jamaicans have access to reliable internet, energy, and water. Deliver comprehensive health insurance to Jamaicans. Undertake a massive expansion of housing solutions and of farmland ownership. Build resilience in the economy through diversification away from traditional sectors and by embracing agricultural transformation and new sectors such as entertainment and leisure and the creative industries. We will create better jobs and a more skilled workforce. We will invest in our young people by funding business and entrepreneurship and draw on the experiences of our people to reform our laws and fight crime. We will create a technology-driven education system that gives the same quality education to all our children, no matter what school they attend. We will stamp out the theft and misuse of taxpayers' resources with harsh penalties and jail time for those convicted. Let us unite around the shared purpose of good governance and a Jamaica that works for all. The People's National Party will fight for you. We have the plan and a strong and experienced team that is ready to hit the ground running on day one. Growing the economy and improving the standard of living for every Jamaican from Negril to Morant Point will be the driver of everything that we do. Let us together build a Jamaica where success, hope, Freedom and justice are the birthright of every citizen. Let us together create a Jamaica that works for everyone, a Jamaica that lifts everyone, a Jamaica where prosperity is not just an empty promise. Let us build that Jamaica where the opportunities for the people are endless and where no one is left behind. On September 3rd, be sure to come out as safely as possible to exercise your right to vote. Make the right choice for the future of Jamaica, land we all love. Put your X beside the head and vote for the People's National Party.
The preceding was a paid announcement by the People's National Party.